Sonic Youth, they weren't just the band, right? They were something else entirely. An art project, a whole cultural force. I mean, these were sonic architects. They took the electric guitar, this icon of rock and roll, and basically just tore up the instruction manual. So how on earth did they do it? Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? How did a band that literally stuck screwdrivers on their guitars end up changing music forever? That's what we're going to dig into. We'll look at how this group of artists coming out of the New York City underground used noise, dissonance, and just pure creativity to build a bridge for a whole generation of alternative music.
All right, here's the plan. First up, we'll talk about them as architects of dissonance. Then we'll open up their sonic toolkit. After that, we'll see how they pioneered the alternative scene. We'll also explore their wider sonic universe. And finally, we'll look at their legacy and what might be coming next.
Okay, so first up, architects of dissonance. You really can't get a handle on Sonic Youth without picturing New York City in the late 1970s. I mean, think about it. You've got urban decay, but also this incredible artistic freedom. It was the perfect breeding ground for this wild movement called no wave.
So what exactly was no wave? Well, it wasn't really a genre. It was more like a total rejection of everything. They were saying no to melody, no to traditional rock, no to anything that felt safe or predictable. And right in the middle of all this is where guitarist Thurston Moore and visual artist Kim Gordon connect. They were soon joined by another guitarist, Lee Ronaldo, whom Moore had seen playing in this insane guitar orchestra led by Glenn Branca. Even their name, Sonic Youth, was this perfect mission statement, a mashup of the raw power of Fred Sonic Smith from the MC5 and the cool vibes of reggae artist Big Youth.
All right, let's talk about their sonic toolkit. This is where it gets really fascinating. How did they actually create that sound? Because it wasn't just about attitude, you know? They were literally inventing a new language for the guitar. The absolute cornerstone of their sound? Alternate tunings. You know, most guitarists learn that one standard tuning. Well, Sonic Youth looked at that and thought, nope, that's a creative dead end for us. So they just threw it out. They started from scratch, treating each guitar like a totally blank canvas where they could create these bizarre new harmonies and dissonant textures. And this table just shows you how wild it got. I mean, look at the tuning for Cool Thing. 4 strings are all tuned to the exact same F-sharp note. 4! That gives you this insane metallic industrial drone that you could never get with a normal tuning. Or check out Bull and the Heather with that D-sharp right next to a D. It's designed to be abrasive and dissonant. The big takeaway here is that every song was its own little universe. It needed its own guitar with its own unique tuning.
Okay, so on top of the weird tunings, they had another trick up their sleeve, the prepared guitar. Now, this was an idea they kind of borrowed from the avant-garde composer John Cage. It's a pretty simple concept, really. If alternate tunings changed what notes the guitar played, preparing the guitar changed what the guitar sounded like, period.
So, what are we talking about here? I mean, what was in their toolbox? Well, a literal toolbox. Seriously, they would jam drumsticks between the strings to hit them, or slide them around. The most famous one, of course, is the screwdriver. They'd wedge one under the strings, right around the 9th fret to get this crazy, sharp, metallic clang. Metal files, you name it. Anything was fair game to make the guitar stop sounding like a guitar and start sounding like some kind of percussive industrial noise machine.
Okay, next up, pioneering the alternative. So they've got this totally unique sonic language. And with it, they start this steady climb, pretty much becoming a guiding light for the entire American indie scene. So let's track how their sound grew over time. Their early stuff was super raw, really abrasive. But then, a huge turning point happens in 1985, when their permanent drummer Steve Shelley joins the band. His power and his precision just unleashed them. It let them start mixing their crazy noise experiments with actual hooks and melodies. And all of this leads up to their 1988 masterpiece, Daydream Nation, a massive double album that became like the album for college radio, a true landmark of indie rock.
And this is where things get really crucial. Daydream Nation was a huge critical success, right? But here's the crazy part. Their record label went bankrupt right after it came out, so you couldn't even find the album in stores. Out of that frustration, they did something that nobody expected from a band this fiercely independent. They signed to a major label. And that one move, well, it changed everything.
You have to understand, before Sonic Youth signed with DGC Records in 1990, the underground and the mainstream were like 2 separate planets. Major labels saw indie bands as a huge risk, and they'd never sign one without forcing them to change their sound. But Sonic Youth, they were different.
They managed to negotiate a deal that gave them total creative control. This became the blueprint. In fact, they famously told this young band that opened for them, a little group called Nirvana, that they should sign with the same label, and we all know what happened next. Nirvana released Nevermind, and just like that, the bridge between the underground and the mainstream was built.
But here's the thing about Sonic Youth, and it's so important. To really get them, you can't just think of them as a band. They were more like a whole cultural project, this sonic universe where music, art, and fashion all just smashed into each other.
Just look at their album covers. They were basically art galleries. For Daydream Nation, probably their most iconic cover, there's no photo of the band. No way. Instead, they used this amazing candle painting by the famous German artist Gerhard Richter. That one choice immediately told you everything. These guys were playing in a different league, connecting what they were doing to the world of high art.
Then for Goo, their big major label debut, they went in a totally different direction. They worked with the underground comic artist Raymond Pettibon. And this drawing, it's just so perfect. It has this gritty, punk rock, film noir vibe that absolutely nailed the sound of the album and the whole anxious feeling of that time.
And how about 1992's Dirty? They collaborated with the artist Mike Kelly, using this picture of one of his, well, really unsettling sculptures made of old stuffed toys. It was a pretty bold statement, a kind of critique of innocence and pop culture, and it was a perfect visual for the album's much grungier, more direct sound.
And this crossover stuff wasn't just limited to their album art. Kim Gordon actually co-founded a fashion label called X-Girl. She called it Real Girls Clothing, and it was meant to be a real alternative to the super male-centric streetwear scene back then. I mean, they did these guerrilla-style fashion shows right on the sidewalk. They collaborated with people like Sofia Coppola and Spike Jonze. X-Girl just blew up and became a massive cultural icon of the 90s.
So, let's talk about their legacy and what came next. For 30 years, Sonic Youth just seemed indestructible. But in the end, the very partnership that created the band would also be the thing that brought it all to a stop.
Yeah, in 2011, the news just stunned everyone. Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon announced they were separating after 27 years together. The band played one final showdown in Brazil, and that was it. They went on an indefinite hiatus. It really felt like the end of an era for one of the most important bands in modern music.
But you know, the end for a band like Sonic Youth isn't really the end. It was more like a new chapter. All four of the core members have gone on to have really prolific solo careers, both in music and in visual art. And what's been amazing is that their drummer Steve Shelley has basically become the official archivist for the band. He's been releasing tons of incredible live albums from their vaults, showing just what a powerhouse they were on stage.
And then, just when we thought we knew what was happening, something totally unexpected went down. In late 2025, this image pops up on all of the band's social media accounts. Now, if you're a fan, you immediately recognize the cover of their 1995 album, Washing Machine. But instead of the title, there's just one thing: the year 2026. You can probably guess what happened next. The internet pretty much exploded with fan theories.
So, what does it all mean? A reunion? A massive reissue? You know, a full-on reunion feels unlikely, to say the least. But it almost certainly means we're getting some kind of huge reissue for one of their most beloved records. And it's just this powerful reminder, isn't it? Even after they officially stopped, the band just keeps finding new ways to make some noise. The sonic universe, it seems, is still expanding.